Republican Seniors of Minnesota. We bring seniors 50 plus together.
What do Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Joe Biden, Donald Trump have in common?
There are tons of things you could do today.
Learn about and discuss issues that are important to Minnesotans.
Homeschooling is way up. Public school enrollment has dropped considerably. Parents are running for school boards now. They're opposing these pornographic books.
Hear from our elected officials and experts on public policy.
This legislative session was all about punishing people who have displayed productivity and virtue.
It's built upon power, sex, and money.
All that and so much more.
You should be having 3 or 4 of these in the back seat of your car. So I'm going to order 1,000.
Republican Seniors of Minnesota. Thanks for joining us.
We're delaying a couple minutes here while we get a technical issue with our screen display resolved. Continue the conversations. Good morning. Would you take a seat, please, and we'll get started. Welcome, and a special welcome to those attending via our video live stream. I had the opportunity to meet with some women over the weekend at Republican Women's Tea, and many of them expressed their appreciation for us having a live stream because transportation at this time of year can be difficult. We've also heard from the Candy-Ojai Republican County, and they are planning to have a group meeting similar to this, but up in their county, starting soon. So our video live streaming and our video recording is reaching out to people who can't make it here. I'm delighted that that's happening. I'm Carol Brumwell. I'm the chair of the Republican Seniors of Minnesota. I'm your MC for this meeting. As I said, this meeting is being live streamed and also recorded by our volunteers. You probably saw the courtesy reminders back there. Please make sure your cell phone is off. That's as a courtesy to our speakers, as a courtesy to others, turn your cell phone off. Take side conversations out to the east lobby, close that door. And the area closest to the beverage table there is off camera. So if you end up making a question or a comment, we bring the microphone to you. Move a little closer to the center so people can see you. Again, it's a large room. And even though you think you have a loud voice, as I do, people can't hear you without the microphone. So please wait for a microphone to be brought to you. Sound check. Are the people in the back row able to hear? Okay. Mike Lehman is up here at our computer, and he will be monitoring. If you can't hear, please raise your hand, because I can't tell from up here. Please raise your hand. We'll try to get the volume cranked up. Please join me for an opening prayer. Gracious God, we thank you for this opportunity to gather for a meeting. We thank you for each and every one who is here today. Help us to see in all others the gifts they are employing to carry out your will. Please bless our speakers this day. Help them to communicate clearly the knowledge they have to share. We pray for those in government office, especially our Minnesota legislators now in session. Give them wisdom during these divisive times to do what is right. Help righteous judges balance justice and mercy and judge in accordance with the laws of the land. Grant each of us the strength and determination to take action and make a difference, using fully the skills and the lifetime you have given us. Amen. We'd like to welcome and acknowledge our veterans and first responders. Will those individuals please rise to be welcomed and acknowledged? And now will everyone else join them in standing, and we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Be seated. Thank you. I'm going to do a few announcements on behalf of Republican seniors. If you have an event or where we have a Senate district that wanted to make a quick announcement as well, we'll have a few minutes at the very end just before the door prize drawing for those 30-second 1-minute announcements. So hold that thought, write your thought down, and raise your hand at the end of the meeting for from the floor announcements. You are welcome to stay in the room and have conversations after the meeting closes. We have an agreement with the building that we will be out of here shortly afternoon, so we may start cleaning up right after the meeting closes. But please stay, continue conversations. We want you to enjoy the time spent with fellow Republicans. As you get your Minnesota tax form ready, as we all will, Chairman David Hahn had an announcement in the Minnesota GOP newsletter reminding us to check off the Republican contribution box on those tax forms. That is how public subsidy money gets distributed out to our candidates rather than the DFL candidates. The legislature put a whopping amount into that public subsidy fund with the tax money that they didn't return to us last year. And so if we check off on that box, both on our tax form and on our property tax form, more money goes to our Republican candidates. Chairman Hahn says there's an extra $2.5 million that could go to our candidates if 500,000 of us check off on that box. Your help is still requested each month over at the MNGOP office. That's at the corner of 494 and 100. I think last month I said 694. No, it's closer than that. And it's the third Thursday of every month from 9:30 to 11:30. I've got the sign-up sheets here, and Al, could I have you start that back that table, and I'll grab this one here. Today's program is a focus on education. We have a couple of homework assignments for you. Number 1, attend your caucus February 27th. You get extra credit if you take one of our brochures or several of our brochures and cards. We've got some extras back there on the check-in table. Hand them out to people who look over 50. And then extra credit if you talk in your precinct meeting about what you enjoy about attending Republican seniors. So 2 points extra on that one. The other homework assignment before our next meeting will be the completion of the presidential primary. You can vote early now. On Friday, you can start voting by placing your early ballot directly into a tabulator. And the primary itself, if you go in person, March 5th. This is a great opportunity for you to practice early voting, practice the bank your vote strategies we heard about last year. I did it for last November's election. It was slick. So go ahead and get your early voting done now, bank your vote, practice that. Extra credit point on that homework assignment, take someone with you. Make sure your neighbors and relatives vote. Are there guests or first-time attendees today who would like to introduce themselves with name and town? First-time attendees or guests? Do I have a hand up? Brad Kohler is here. Could we have a microphone, please?
I'm good. Brad Kohler, CD3. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. We have another guest here. Microphone, please. Behind you, Lynn.
I'm Tad Jewett, also running in CD3. We're going to take it back this year.
Thank you, Tad. Jamie, did you want to introduce yourself since the other two did as well?
And I'm Taylor Rahm, running in CD2, and we're going to defeat Angie Craig in November.
Thank you, Taylor. And we will hear from the candidates in March. I've invited each of them to come and provide a 3 to 5 minute speech, and you'll have a chance to ask questions. But I'm delighted that they took an opportunity to come speak with you informally today and get to know you a bit. Our first speaker today.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Don't we usually at the beginning have 2 minutes for the applause from people in the audience?
No, we are doing brief announcements at the end of the meeting today. Thank you. Our first speaker today is Kim Wilson. She is a board member on the recently formed nonprofit United Parenting Coalition. She is an expert on homeschooling. Kim's been a lifelong active resident in her Minnesota community. She's a wife and mother of 5 children, ranging in age from 15 to 33, along with many volunteer opportunities with her church, sports, and community. She spent the last 17 years homeschooling her 4 younger children. When the pandemic hit, Kim found herself helping the next generations of parents navigate the homeschooling journey. Today, she continues to homeschool her high school sophomore and offers encouragement and resources to families as they discover that homeschooling has become their school of choice. Please welcome Kim Wilson.
Thank you, Carol. Are the slides up? Did we get them up? Nope, that's fine. Perfect. I don't need them. Okay, Kim Wilson. I'm from Woodbury. I've lived in Woodbury my whole life, and wasn't able to go very far. But I'm here for 2 reasons. Number one, representing United Parenting Coalition, which is a new nonprofit organization that started recently by Jenna and Mike Dix. And Jenna Dix, you may know, she is our Minnesota GOP secretary. So we know they found that parenting is hard. They had a teenager and a preschooler at the time. And there was a lot of demands being placed on parents, especially during that pandemic. And they were trying to, try to figure out in today's parenting, work and school, raising our kids, disciplining, peer pressures. We're also trying to navigate as parents the struggle of screen time and technology, social media, the mental health that's going along with that, gender identity, and then, of course, the loss of faith as our children get older. So parents often find themselves turning to the internet to to find resources, and those resources that we maybe used to trust, we maybe can't trust as much anymore because of the changing society and the pressures that these organizations have on them. So this is where United Parenting Coalitions has stepped in and then can assist parents. So UPC is here to level up parents with some knowledge, resources, and the tools that they need to confidently lead their families and advocate for their beliefs. UPC is a public square platform for parents and grandparents covering 7 major areas, including education, healthcare, safety, legal rights, finance, faith, and government. So we want to start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it, Proverbs 22:6. So it is important that we invest in our children's future. This is your one-stop shop website. We have listed allies out there covering those areas. So in the back, over on the bar, is a QR code. You can scan that; it'll bring you right to the website. It's UnitedParentingCoalition.org. But now, I'll talk to you about homeschooling, because that's why I was brought on to the UPC board, and that was Jamie Kokai, is also a UPC board member, and homeschool kind of. She started off on the homeschool journey also, and then chose a different route. But so, as was stated, I'm the mother of 5 children. Not all of them were homeschooled, and I started homeschooling 18 years ago. It wasn't an easy journey. It was before we had all the easy access to internet. I don't know if internet makes it good or not good. I usually find myself standing in front of younger parents, the ones that are starting off on this journey, who want to get information and know where to start. So today, I'm just going to change it a little bit and maybe share some ways that we as older parents can invest into our society through our kids, our grandkids, and even our churches and local homeschooling community. So being a homeschooler doesn't mean you're anti-public school. So if anybody's kids or grandkids are in public school, I am not anti-public school. It serves its purpose. It just wasn't what worked for me. So there's many reasons why someone may think about homeschooling or choose to homeschool, whether they have learning troubles or bullying, socializing, the long hours, whatever it is. There's many options out there for homeschooling. And there's a difference between homeschooling and schooling at home. The pandemic gave parents a real good glimpse into what their kids were learning and being taught in that public school, or not taught. The school would often send work home. They required kids to log into computer times, fill out worksheets, whatever was needed to fill that day. But homeschooling actually offers customized education that is based on students' and families' interests and needs. And it allows the parents actually to decide what to teach, how to deliver the information, what assignments they want. It allows you to move at the pace of your child. It allows families to learn together. I used a one-room schoolhouse method, so all 4 of my children were taught the same thing at the same time. You teach to the oldest, the information trickles down. It really was fun. It allows you to individualize the teaching methods, and it meets the kids where they're at, and then you get to build on it. So you don't have to keep moving through things. Homeschooling is not having the answer for everything. but it is learning with your child. It is not a brainwashing or a guarantee your kids will become adults that align with your values and beliefs. But it is giving them a solid foundation grounded in principles and beliefs that you have. Now, most people here are not starting out homeschooling, but some of the ways our generation can get these kids and invest in them, we can encouragement for the young families who are starting off homeschooling, who are questioning it. Whenever you start out homeschooling, you're always asking yourself, am I qualified? Am I going to make a mistake? Is it hard? Yes, yes, and yes. You are qualified to teach your child. You've taught your child since the day you brought that child home from the hospital. We will make mistakes along the way, whether we're homeschooling or not. And if it was easy, it wouldn't be very rewarding. So we want to get involved with our grandkids. Do you have hobbies? Commit to a day and a time on a weekly or bi-weekly basis to go over to that house and teach those kids knit, crochet, sew. Do you woodwork, fish, hunt, gardening? Are you an artist? Once a week, go over there, have those kids, teach them how to cook dinner for the family. Do you play cards or chess? These are all things that are this younger generation, we're losing them to video games and apps. Pickleball, photography, all these types of things are counted and go very much towards homeschooling. Phy-Ed class, arts, all of these types of things. If your kids or grandkids are in public school and you feel the desire to come alongside the homeschooling community, get involved in a local church. Find out if they have a homeschool co-op there. Homeschool co-ops are located throughout the entire state. There's hundreds of them. You can step into that co-op and you can teach. You can teach your hobby, your skill. If you are a retired scientist, an accountant, mathematician, whatever it is you did as a job, you offer value to these kids who are coming up in the next generation. We need to get in there and teach them things. Co-ops, the co-op my kids attended were for middle and high school kids. Some co-ops have parents teach. My co-op actually had people who were in that field. So my daughter's science teacher is a biology major. Her math instructor or tutor is actually a math major. So we realize that it is important to offer support and encouragement to the homeschooling. I'm going to say moms, but dads also. One thing is when moms are homeschooling, they don't get a break from their kids. They're always with their kids. So they don't have time to do regular things, doctor's appointments, dentist appointments. So that's where you could come in and circle back, offer encouragement, offer your skills, and then get involved. Visit those kids once a week or have a set day where you're going to come in and teach something, and then that's the opportunity for that parent to schedule their appointments during that time. One last thing I want to say. There's a big MACHE, which is Minnesota Association of Christian Home Educators, MACHE.org. They have a big homeschooling convention coming up May, I think it's 17th and the 18th in Rochester at the Convention Center. Very big, great keynote speakers. I believe grandparents are free to attend. If you have anybody interested in homeschooling or who is a homeschooler, remind them this is a great place to go get resources and encouragement. You can also, I'm going to throw it out there, grandparents and parents can attend together, and then the grandkids, you can split them up. because we homeschool, it doesn't mean we shouldn't care about our public school system. We still need to stay involved in our public school system, and we need to stay vocal in what our state and our local schools are teaching. Thank you.
We have time for a question or two. Does anyone have a question for Kim Wilson? Microphone, please. Microphone is coming, thanks.
Would you please repeat the Christian acronym?
Yes. I'll let you know that on there, back on the bar, there's also a QR code for it, but it's MACHE.org. And if you're interested in the homeschool convention, you would go to the events tab, and then you would find the convention information there.
I have a question about learning pods. I've heard that they are groups of families that get together to teach certain subjects collectively. Do the parents themselves take turns teaching in those groups, or do they bring an outside person to do that? And if so, are there licensing requirements for that?
Okay, so now we're getting into the legal stuff. Legally, as a parent, you may teach your child. If I were to send my child to somebody else's home to get schooled and they were responsible for their education, that person would have to be licensed. So when I send my child to a co-op, that person is not responsible for my child's education. They're just teaching them. It's a tutor. So these pods, there's different ways of working them. I think I had a pod before pods were labeled pods, which is a group of families got together, and like I did not enjoy dissection, but my friend was a nurse, so she took that unit at my kitchen counter. So, and I was happy. You take my counter, you do the rest. And so it would be something along those lines. There's different ways of working it, and that's the great thing about the homeschooling, is you can find these groups of families and get together and figure out what works.
How are athletics or drama or the band or other outside school activities affected or do affect homeschoolers?
Perfect. I love that question. As a homeschool, the Minnesota law states that we can participate in activities at the school you are zoned for. So in my situation, my kids were zoned for Woodbury High School. My kids all ran track, cross country. I had a quarterback on the football team, a basketball team. They went to homecoming, they went to dances, and my one son was kind of crazy and decided he wanted to try public school just to see what it was like. His senior year, he had already racked up about 33 college credits doing a PSEO program. So he started in January or November of 2019, and then of course COVID hit. And so he ended up at home anyways, but now he had to dial into the school every day, which he realized maybe wasn't all it was cracked up to be.
If you go to a public school, like I did, you get a diploma at the end, and there's documentation. So if you go to employers and they ask, so how is that handled for the homeschool? How does an employer or your child, as they move forward, how do they say, yeah, well, I was schooled at home, and what is the employing public thinking? How do they go, oh, well, that's just as good as this?
Good question. The stigma around homeschooling has changed quite a bit, especially in the last few years. My kids all have a diploma, and as a homeschooler, we are recognized in the state of Minnesota as a school. We're just not licensed or accredited or things like that. My kids have all taken college classes. In order for them to receive the diploma, I get to set the graduation standards that I want my kids to attain. I don't have to follow what the state has. I'm required to teach subjects. I'm required to teach math and history and science and English, but within those subjects, I can teach what I want underneath that umbrella. So they have an official diploma. One of them even went through a graduation ceremony with their local co-op. They have a transcript, a high school transcript from Cambridge Academy, which is the street we live on. And all of that has gotten them into college, and I mean, they have not had a problem getting into college. I will say that also. I have 2 in college right now for computer science, and one is graduated as an ICU nurse, and she's in Nashville now. Yep.
Last question.
I run a business, and I have 2 homeschooled kids working for me, and they are great. There is a big difference, I can tell. I've been doing this a long time in the restaurant business, and they're very well mannered and respectful, and I think it's a great thing. Thank you.
Well, I didn't want to brag on it, but thanks.
Thank you so much, Kim Wilson. And I do want to mention we continue to have a few technical problems. We've chosen to leave the slide up for our featured presenter so that her presentation will work. That was Kim Wilson from United Parenting Coalition. Thank you, Kim. Our second lead-in speaker is a Minnesota Republican who you know. Mike Barg has joined us to speak about his decision to get involved in education. When Mike retired, he decided to focus on education. He's attended the Bloomington School Board meetings. I'm told he gave quite a speech last fall. I'm sorry I missed it, Mike. Beth is behind you clapping. And Mike and his wife Lori have 7 grandchildren. Mike, in addition to attending the public school meetings, has been tutoring math at a private school. So Mike Barg, please come forward and tell us about your experience getting involved in education. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. And before I start again, thank you, Kim Wilson. That was really, really informative on homeschooling. I was asked, as Carol said, to speak just briefly about getting involved in education issues in Bloomington, and kind of speak a little bit. I was asked to speak briefly, and I will try not to take up too much time here, but speak a little bit about what is going on and kind of one of the major issues facing the Bloomington school districts, and kind of what we are trying to deal as volunteers in trying to make a difference and try to change the course of a little bit of what's going on in Bloomington. And so I'll give you a little history and kind of where that stands right now, and kind of what help is still needed along the way. I'm part of a group of volunteers. It's nothing real formal, but we're calling ourselves, as we needed the name, Bloomington Parents Association. We're not affiliated directly with Minnesota Parents Association, or Alliance, excuse me, but we share a lot of those same values and goals, and certainly admire the work they're doing. And you'll hear a lot more, obviously, about Minnesota Parents Alliance from Cristine Trooien very shortly. But where I got involved in the school district issues and education issues was as I was looking for a way to volunteer besides the tutoring that I'm doing in a private school in Richfield, which I find very rewarding, is that there was notice that Bloomington was accepting a large donation of books from the City of Bloomington's Human Rights Department in the area primarily of CRT, or critical race theory. And so I volunteered to be someone who would read through some of those books, get a hold of them, and see what kind of materials was going to our children. And it was concerning that a fair amount, the amount of indoctrination that seemed to be reflected in those materials. portraying the black experience as one of oppression, victimization, systematic racism. And it seemed like it was very one-sided in terms of, and almost trying to foster a feeling of division and negativity. So started reviewing those books with some other volunteers, and we were trying to work with the school district to see what we could do to kind of express that concern and what sort of things we could do to try to remedy it and balance things out a bit. In last year, that was a couple of years ago, last year as we were working on all this, things kind of modified a bit within the state and our local district. And you probably have heard some about this. There became a large infusion of books of an LGBTQ nature. And so we started looking at those, and some of that became extremely concerning. The amount of, first of all, these books tended to be set up for all three grade levels. By that I mean elementary, middle school, and high school. And maybe the most concerning is the ones that were geared toward elementary. And we were finding a number of things that really seemed like a problem. One is the age-appropriate nature of this. Trying to talk to kids about some really sensitive topics and gender ideology and transitions and things like that. For kids that probably aren't even thinking along those lines, just living their lives as kids. So that was a concern. And then also, not just the age-appropriate nature, but regardless of the level, the sexually explicit nature of a lot of the materials. So that led to efforts to try to see what we could really do to push back on that. And, well, I just add a little bit here before I go there. Some of the concerns were with regard to the books. The glorification and positivity surrounding children, preteen, and even younger, in the materials we would read, talking about how many they were exploring, and they believe they identified with the opposite sex, whatever that was, boy to girl or girl to boy. And just the joy it was bringing them, the positivity, the lack of any sort of downside to it. And just making it seeming like, well, if you've got problems, this is probably a wonderful thing that maybe you belong in it, you're in the wrong body. And so it was really things that didn't need to be, certainly with elementary grades and even beyond. It was misleading, I guess you could say, in terms of this is a solution to your issues, and those who follow that are really coming out on the good side. And the explicit nature too. Minor sex was involved in a lot of these materials, graphic language, things like oral sex and masturbation, and then a lot of illustrations, so kind of a how to do some things. And so a lot of it just seemed very, very inappropriate and not what our children should be learning as part of their education. Not all books were like that we reviewed, but just many were. So the pushback we started to give was, a primary way, was in regard to school board listening sessions. They have, some of you may have know this, once a month before a school board meeting, there is a time for a listening session where residents, parents, and other residents can get up and speak for a couple of minutes on whatever issue they feel is important in the schools. And it's in front of the school board. It's not a give and take. It's something that the school board just listens to, but you get a chance to speak. And so both sides do. And we found that, and this has been going on in these listening sessions for a while, but we found that once this issue came to the forefront, there got to be an awful lot of interest in it, and pretty soon these school board listening sessions, which were previously held just in the meeting room where the school board conducts their meetings, needed to be held in an auditorium, the auditorium of the school district, because of the number of people that were interested in speaking. And when I say this, I do mean speakers on both sides of these issues. These meetings were well attended. They got passionate at times, and were mostly civil. I say mostly. There would be some speakers that would be, and I will say, for the most part, on the opposite side, who were very harsh and antagonistic in their criticism of our concerns. And most of the opposition was, I found, non-responsive. We were focused on the age appropriateness, the graphic nature, the impropriety of, of a lot of these materials for the K through 12 kids, especially, again, we focus a lot on elementary, but it applies across the board. And the responses were rarely addressing our issues and trying to say why that's not a concern or they feel that we're wrong in that area. Mostly just emotion-based and accusatory and attacking. Things like, well, you're anti-LGBTQ, you're homophobic, you're transphobic, whatever. And the focus got to be, and for those of you who were following what was going on with the school board and elections last fall, the term that got bantied about a lot was book banning. Oh, this is a bunch of intolerant people who want to ban books. And book banning has kind of a negative connotation, as if I don't want you to see something. It's really an unfair accusation on both of those grounds, book banning or that this is discriminatory or anti-LGBTQ. With regard, and with the book banning, the focus then is, well, there's a First Amendment right to express something, and you are violating that First Amendment right. Well, there's some falsity to all of that. For one thing, just because you have a First Amendment right to say something doesn't mean it belongs in the schools. I mean, regardless of what the material is, I can come up with, I've got a great book on nuclear physics, and I've got a right to talk about it, so let's have it discussed, put in the schools. Well, it may not be appropriate. It may not be something they're ready for. So the mere fact that something is protected by the First Amendment doesn't mean, well, it should be in the schools. And there's case law that school districts have discretion to include what they think should be involved in their curriculum, and not only the curriculum, but in the libraries. Well, as regard the First Amendment itself, if we just even talk about that, not everything is protected under the First Amendment. As a retired lawyer, well, one thing we always learned in law school was you can't cry fire in a crowded theater. That was always kind of the standard thing for not everything is protected speech. You can't advocate overthrow of the government. You can't advocate violence. So there are limitations. And with regard to what we're dealing with here, a major limitation, and this is one that has been held for quite some time through the courts, is obscenity and child pornography are not protected speech under the First Amendment. And that's the crux of our argument. It's not a First Amendment protection if you've got these kind of materials being presented in the schools. They're not educational, and they're not First Amendment protected. With regard to the book banning issue, book banning is mostly meant, it's a vague term, but mostly meant to talk about, well, I don't like the viewpoint of this or that author or book, so don't want that in there. And that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about materials that are inappropriate, are not First Amendment protected, and don't belong as subject matter and details in the school system. With regard to the question of discrimination or anti-LGBTQ, that's not the intention at all of our group either. The things that we don't want shown or we don't want included, and some of the graphic nature I talked about, is not something that just applies to non-heterosexual sex or LGBTQ, but applies across the board. There's never been a time in our schools where we've wanted to bring in Playboy or something else that you would consider purely heterosexual, but it's of a sexually explicit nature, age inappropriate. So this isn't an attack on a group of people. It's just saying these materials, regardless of where the sexual orientation is, they don't belong in the public schools. So where we're at right now is in response to this, and I will say, I think it's a fairly accurate statement that our school board is largely progressive. Out of the 7 members, 6 of them definitely align that way. So while there was no feedback from them during these listening sessions, what seems to have resulted from them so far, unfortunately, seems to come from a progressive standpoint. One thing is the school board has proposed a new policy that pertains to library book and selection. And it has not been approved yet. It's something they'll be deciding, we believe, in March. So it's still up in the air, but they're looking at this proposal, which is largely taken from Minnesota State School Board Association language, and they are unfortunately lean to the progressive side quite a bit as well. And this policy is going to make it a little difficult to get, changes made in the school district and to get some of these books removed. It puts a lot of authority, a lot of power to the library director. It seems to lessen and minimize the power or the voice that parents have. And it's going to be a difficult thing to establish why certain books should not be in the library system. So, but we're working at that. There is some language that we can use from this proposal if it gets passed, and that is there still is to be a prohibition against age-inappropriate materials and materials that are above the maturity level of the students for whom they're intended. But there's a lot of vague language in there too. So to be honest, it's going to be difficult to achieve what we want to and get some of the materials out without within that system. The other thing is that maybe our best bet is going to be, and this is what we're going to focus on a bit, is to counteract the materials that they have that are being brought into the schools, into the libraries, counteract those with other kinds of books, more traditional value materials, more wholesome materials, things that are maybe biographies of people who would be good, for example, in the CRT area, of leading blacks who are not ascribing to the CRT type of language. So those are things that we're going to, and that may be under the language of the proposal, our best bet, which is to try to counter what is being put into the schools. The challenges we face, and I'll wrap it up here quickly, and I would say in one word, is fear. There are a lot of parents who side with, are concerned with what we're concerned with and want to make some changes, but are afraid of ostracization of family, friends, co-workers, neighbors, and fearful of retribution to their students unfairly if the parents are getting too vocal. So that's something we've got to try to overcome and give them the courage. And hopefully the courage comes from numbers. So we need more parents involved so that they can feel less and less fearful, because there is opposition out there. It's just very difficult to get that opposition mobilized. What you can do, and I realize most of you are not parents, but if you have children who are parents, particularly in the Bloomington school districts, but this applies across the state. We're not unique here. If you have children that are parents, talk to them, try to get them involved, give them some encouragement, or just other parents that you know in your neighborhood or friends. We need that kind of parental involvement. If you can send letters to the editor, that kind of thing is helpful as well. The school officials, communicating with them. And there's even a petition on the Bloomington Parents Alliance website that is often, or has some petitions at times, and if there's anything that you feel would be worth your adding, or you would feel comfortable adding your name to, that is always helpful. Plus, we can all learn more, and I'm looking forward to Cristine Trooien's talk. Anything we can learn and get help from the Minnesota Parents Association is something that would be very helpful to us. So any type of help you can give is beneficial and much appreciated. And the website for the Bloomington Parents Alliance is quite simply bloomingtonparentsalliance.com. So please feel free and look at that, and there's additional information that you can gain from that. And so I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mike. We have one question here, and we will limit it to just one in honor of Cristine Trooien's time.
Mine?
Barg, B-A-R-G.
Like she said.
I am pleased to welcome our featured speaker now. Cristine Trooien is the founder and executive director of Minnesota Parents Alliance. She's a mother of 3 elementary-age children. She started paying attention to what was happening and not happening in Minnesota's K-12 education during the school closures of 2020 and 2021. In 2022, just recently, she launched Minnesota Parents Alliance, a statewide 501c4 organization to educate and empower parents to become strong advocates for academic achievement, equality, and parental rights. Cristine describes herself as just a parent. She does not have experience or special qualifications to do this work. She is simply a mother who refuses to sit on the sidelines as our well-funded education system continues to fail the future leaders of our state. Her goal is to lead by example and empower parents and community members to find their voice. She wants people to get involved, people finding the time to get involved in driving changes at the local level so we can return education in Minnesota to the top-rated K-12 system in the country. MPA has played an instrumental role in getting over 75 achievement-focused candidates elected to school boards across the state. It's currently supporting over 90 currently seated members with training, resources, and support they need to be effective. The Minnesota Parents Alliance motto is, "Parents are not the problem, parents are the solution." Please welcome Cristine Trooien.
We good? Can everyone hear me in the back? No? Good now? Yes? Okay. Thank you for that kind introduction. This is a room of friendly faces, and I'm really happy to be here. I think that I would be preaching to the choir at this point. I've looked at the people that have spoken to this group before who are very well educated on what's going on in our K-12 system. So I think my goal with this presentation in the interest of time is to kind of gloss over, I think, some of what's going on because I think many people in this room already know. So I'm going to start out the presentation by just, you gave me a great introduction, and I sometimes will, self-introduce. I'm just a parent, and my mission with this is to reflect that because there's no magic in what I'm doing, and every single parent who is like me can also do this work, and that's what it's going to take, I believe, to restore our state, is a lot of organized and involved parents. My last name is Trooien, pronounced Troyen. I'm a Minnesotan by marriage. I have an amazing husband with strong Scandinavian roots, and we love living in Minnesota, and we're not moving. So we're going to have to work really hard to restore our state. I think our state is in a season right now in our state's history that we've never quite seen before, and it's going to take a lot of invested folks who want to stay in this state and make this a great place for our kids. I'm a mother to 3, and I'm a homeschool parent for maybe obvious reasons at this point. I'm really glad that Kim was able to be here today to talk a little bit about that. There's a really deep heart in the homeschooling community, and I have been really encouraged by what I'm seeing develop outside of our public school system. So my loves are education and challenges and freedom. And everyone who knows me will know that I love puzzles. I like to figure out how things fit together. And so a big piece of this work is putting the puzzles together. I think that, or puzzle pieces together. I think that in K-12 education right now, it's a very thorny ball of issues. And it's very easy to get distracted on all of the different threads that I think need to be sort of tugged at in the system. But it's been right in my wheelhouse to think about how all of the different people in different local communities can kind of fit together and come together to drive at the same kind of big picture mission that we have to restore our state's K-12 education system. And I love freedom. I think that right now, I know that there are a lot of vets in the room, and I want to especially call out Colonel Don Patton for inviting me today. The country that our children, I'm also not a professional speaker. You guys have better speakers usually, and I am just a parent, so this is not my specialty. my voice will crack sometimes when I talk about what's at the heart of this mission because it is deeply personal. And I will tell you that the future of this country is not going to be the future that people like Colonel Don Patton have stepped up and served. I think that we, the younger generation here, need to have it on our hearts that we can't let this sort of erosion happen on our watch. So that is really the heartbeat of this mission, is to make sure that we're upholding what I think is your generation passing the baton to us to make sure that our kids are going to be living in the free country that I think people like Colonel Don have fought for. So with that, I'm the Executive Director of Minnesota Parents Alliance, and this all started back in about 2021. A lot of people were paying attention at the time, knowing that there were parents that were coming to their local school board meeting. They were upset because of COVID restrictions, largely. I think that's sort of what sparked a lot of the engagement that we were seeing, and parents were rightfully upset. Schools were being closed, kids were being masked, and their voice wasn't being heard. Their parental rights were being trampled on, and it was like nothing we've ever seen before. I think up until that point, and I will speak for myself, most parents really believed that the system had our kids' best interests at heart, and that if we ever had a concern, we could come to them and they would listen to us, and they would respect our rights and our viewpoint and incorporate that into school policy. And we very quickly learned that we were not welcome in that space, and there was not an iterative discussion happening on what needs to be happening with our children. At that point, you may also remember that the National School Board Association contacted Attorney General Merrick Garland and asked for federal law enforcement investigations for parents that they were equating to domestic terrorists. So at that point, most parents in the country realized that there's something else going on here, and we need to push back. So at that time, there was a lot of chaos. Parents were upset. They were showing up to meetings. It was very dysfunctional and not super constructive. And the outcome really was that a lot of parents just pulled their kids out and never came back. I was one of them. And there are other parents, though, that are still stuck in the system because they can't financially afford to get their kids out. We have compulsory education, so their kids are in public schools. And I really strongly believe that we need to help those families figure out an exit ramp. If their school and their local community is not serving their students, that student doesn't get a do-over. So I think I can talk all day long about my feelings on school choice and education freedom as well, and that's a whole separate topic. But I do believe that the parents that knew that their kids were going to have to stay in public school got very engaged very quickly and realized that they need to pay attention to what's going on at the local leadership of their district. So at that point, it was chaotic. I realized in my home community there were a lot of great parents that stepped up, and they said, well, we're going to solve this. We're just going to run for school board, and we'll win, and we'll fix everything. That didn't work the way that we thought it would, and parents stepped up and ran that had full-time jobs and young kids. They've never campaigned before. They had no idea what they were doing. They filed for candidacy in August. Elections in November, had very little time to get their message out. They were unknown largely to the community, and they were up against incumbents that had great name recognition and probably some union support. And so they lost. And that was my moment that I said, there's got to be a better way to do this, because those people belong on that school board. They would have been great for our community. They would have helped to guide us through what was a very challenging time. And so I realized that I don't really know how to run a great campaign, but I'll bet there are people who do, and we should talk to those people and figure out some sort of a mechanism of support for parents who want to get more involved in their local communities, because that's going to be the key to getting schools back on track. So in early 2022, I started this organization. We launched really in that spring, and we established some events to do candidate training and to try to help parents who wanted to run for their local school board. Our mission is simple. It's educate and empower Minnesota parents to effectively engage in their school community as strong advocates for academic achievement, equality, and parental rights. Those are kind of the three categories that I feel like are overarching themes right now. And I think that our mission is unassailable. I really think it's challenging for anybody to say that we don't believe that these are the three things that we really should be championing for our public school system. So the challenge here, and I think I'm probably preaching to the choir, most people know that there is so much brokenness in our K-12 system right now. We're at a real crossroads, and we are looking at proficiency scores now that less than 50% of kids who are educated in Minnesota public schools are proficient at grade level in math and reading. That's unacceptable, and it should be front page news every single day until we fix that problem. Unfortunately, there is a media blackout on this issue. You will be challenged to see legacy media in the state of Minnesota cover this issue with the diligence that I believe that they should, to put pressure on every adult to be accountable to this, because I think that it is largely unknown. I can't tell you how many people I speak to that I provide them just basic statistics of where we're sitting from an achievement and proficiency perspective. They're shocked. They're shocked. And I think that one real challenge is that a lot of you will probably receive a little postcard from your district's marketing department or an email saying, we're fantastic. Our district is great. We rank, wherever we fall kind of in the, state spectrum of proficiency scores, and they're a marketing department. So they're never going to tell you that they're not doing the job that they should be doing in educating kids in that district. They're going to come and ask you for probably more tax dollars in November. So this was covered on Fox News nationally. This was, just after our 2023 proficiency scores came out. You'll see that 60% of kids are not proficient in science. You've got about 55% not proficient in math and about 50% not proficient in reading. What are these kids' future? What is your future if you can't read or do math at grade level? Right now, we're looking to, as you break out, by racial demographic, a lot of, I think, the decline has been happening as a function of, I think, really misguided equity initiatives. And the very children that I believe that those equity initiatives are supposed to be helping are being harmed the most. I mean, you can see here that 11th grade math proficiency, 14% of Black 11th graders in the state of Minnesota can do math at grade level. What is their future? So we have to look at the numbers, and I think that this whole mission of ours needs to be data-driven. I think there's big feelings about what's going on in education, but we need to look at the facts, and the facts are very grim right now. So we really are focused on, again, achievement is the number one thing in our mission, and I think it's the number one thing that we all need to be talking about. Yes, books in the library are a big deal and they're upsetting to people, and yes, there are a lot of other kind of controversial and divisive topics, but I will tell you that the number one thing is achievement. It is the mission of our public schools. So you can look here that I think there is sometimes a misconception that, well, it's Minneapolis schools are bad or some of the closer in metro area. In the suburbs, Edina has, I think, for a long time been a gold standard of, a great public school district. People wanted to move to Edina for the schools. A quarter of their students, right, they can't read at grade level either. And so they're the top of the top. Edina and Wayzata, those are the districts that everybody else is sort of compared to. They're the top rated districts. So when Wayzata gets a postcard that says, we're number one or number two in the state, well, a quarter of their kids still can't read at grade level. So it's a pretty low bar that we're working with here. And I think you always have to take everything that you hear from your district with a grain of salt, because that's how they're looking at their proficiency, is they're just measuring against whoever the top performer is. And candidly, the top performers aren't doing very well either. This is a trend. This is not COVID related necessarily either. I think a lot of people want to point to COVID, and certainly, closing kids out of school for 2 years did not help. It exacerbated what already, though, was a trend. And we can see, right now, a 10-year trend is, we're down by close to 30% in math and, 14% in reading over a 10-year period. And you can see that this isn't funding related, because over that 10 years, per pupil funding has increased by almost 40%. You can look here to see that we spend an incredible amount of money in the state of Minnesota on our K-12 education budget. About $20 billion per biennium is allocated to our public schools. And right now, the average, per pupil student spending is close to, it's about $23,000 per student. Here's just a breakdown of what we're spending in some districts per student. Minneapolis Public Schools is up to $30,000 per student. And even, Thief River Falls, which is, outstate greater Minnesota, still 27.5. So right now, you're looking at, the average being 16.5. You can send your kid to a private school in Minnesota for the average is about 7. So we're literally spending 2 times as much to educate students in the public school system, and we're getting a far worse result. So that's really the argument that we're trying to make, and in tandem now with the fact that our schools are incredibly unsafe in a lot of metro area districts in particular. The level of dysfunction and violence is off the charts and like nothing anybody has ever seen before. And I again will largely point to the fact that there are now, a lot of misguided equity policies around student conduct and how we treat discipline that I believe have caused, I think, some of the complete breakdown and the inability for teachers to control their classroom. They can't manage their classroom. They can't exclude kids. There are new rules now about what they can and can't do to suspend, expel. I don't believe that most of the discipline is even being, or the incidents are even being reported properly. So, there are a ton of headlines, and I'm sure, again, a lot of people in this room are very well aware of the fact that, the constant fighting. Like Harding had a stabbing. There was just a stabbing in Minnetonka of sort of an unrelated issue, but this can't be, right? Nobody's learning in an environment like this when it is that out of control. And I don't think that these are not one-off things. If you will speak to any student in any one of these school districts, they will tell you that this is fairly common in the halls, in the classrooms, anywhere on school property, this kind of stuff is happening. So that is a real concern. It's not just a concern for our students, but it's a concern for our teachers. We are losing good teachers in droves because of this. They can't work with this. There is absolutely no way that they can deliver effective instruction when you have this sorts of chaos going on. And again, everything that this kind of all will come to is there's a failure of local leadership to address this properly, in my opinion. So the safety is a big deal, and I know you've had a lot of other speakers come in and talk about the level of activism that is happening in our schools. So I'm not really going to go into that except to say that it is at the expense of achievement, and that is the argument that I am trying to make, and that is the argument that I am empowering parents to make, because again, there are a lot of complicated issues in the K-12 space and many things that we won't all agree on. Our public schools are for everybody, and there are a lot of diverse viewpoints on a lot of social and political issues right now. I think we're in kind of a cultural convulsion. We don't need to fight the culture war with our friends and neighbors. And so when our schools are steeping our children in this sort of activist mentality, it's coming at the expense of achievement. And that's the case I'm trying to make for public education, is that that's in the way. So yes, we have to address it, but we're addressing it because we're trying to get to what are we spending our time and money on? Coercive learning environments where I've walked the halls of these schools, and the posters and things that are just ambient in the learning environment, you can't escape it. It's everywhere. And so these kids are in a pressure cooker of political ideology that they can't, as a middle school kid, really stand up for, because it's everywhere, and it's coming from activist teachers in some situations, but I am careful to say that we still have so many good teachers. They don't want this. They're not doing this. They're not putting this in their classroom. They're not foisting it on your kids or your grandkids. But there are activists now that are in the building, and they have a very powerful influence over these children. And so I think it's really important to just understand that, when all of this is going on, again, it's very distracting to kids. They're not learning when they're being radicalized in their classroom. There are gender secrecy policies and practices. We know districts that are, they currently have these policies. They're unconstitutional, and they're alarming to parents because we have lost our trust now. If we know that there's a policy on the books that says that a teacher can keep a secret from a parent that their child is identifying as a different gender or is going through some other transitional experience with their gender identity, and you won't know that as a parent, they're going to keep that from you, that's a breakdown in trust. Okay, and so we always speak to the fact that the parent-teacher partnership is the strongest and most influential factor in student success. And once you erode and you break that partnership down, that child doesn't have a chance. And so all of this, regardless of how you feel about gender ideology and transgender issues, the argument to be made here is that it's a violation of the parent-teacher partnership that needs to exist. And so we'll kind of keep coming back to that theme as well. It's the same thing with the library and the classroom materials. Michael did a fine job of conveying that there are big concerns of what is going into our libraries, who's putting it there. But the bigger concern is what is the policy in place for instructional materials and curriculum selection. And so, again, this is going to be a local leadership issue. You need strong local leaders to say, we're going to set a sane policy that respects parental rights, that sets age-appropriate content in our schools, whether it's in the curriculum or in the library. So there's been a lot to say about that, but I want to stress that I think we don't have to fight a culture war. I think what we need to do is we need to be activists and advocates for achievement, because that's what we're driving at. And I think that it's an argument of time and money. We have a finite amount of teaching time in every school day for these teachers to deliver instruction to children, and we have a finite amount of money in our budget. How are we prioritizing that to make sure that every penny in the budget and every minute of teaching time is directed at getting these kids up to speed? Because the amount of learning loss that has happened after school closures is immense. We have a lot to overcome. And so I think that is really the argument to be made. And the fact that activism is just replacing academics now. I want to just address that there is another, force here, and it's special interests. And that comes in the form of teachers' unions. It comes in the form of non-governmental organizations that are partnering with your local school district. I am highlighting here that in this last election cycle in 2023, Education Minnesota and their local unions have spent literally untold hundreds of thousands of dollars keeping parents off of school boards. They don't always report accurately, I will say that right now, but I will say that, we can tell by just what they have in total cash on hand, which in this report is close to $700,000 in a local school board race. If anybody ever tries to tell a school board member that they can't really be effective and you're just sort of like this token person on a board and you just need to let the superintendent run the show, school board members are very powerful, and if you ever need to be convinced, look at how much money they will spend trying to get union-endorsed candidates elected. And I think we're just starting to see that. I think this year you will see this number probably double to triple. There are many more races this year, and we can get to that, but the teachers union is a very powerful and, in my opinion, very negative influence on the K-12 landscape. So basically, if you are going to run as a school board candidate and you don't have a union endorsement, you will have the full force of Education Minnesota and the DFL resources stacked against you. They work in tandem. I think that Education Minnesota and the DFL party in Minnesota are one and the same at this point. And so that is what you're up against. So that is why our effort that we're mounting is really important. And again, our motto is parents are not the problem, parents are the solution. We want to focus on our mission, which is, again, achievement focused. We want to invite everyone. We have built big coalitions of families that are diverse in their political perspectives, they're diverse in their religious views, because they know that what's happening in our K-12 system is wrong for their kids. We're trying to lead by example, so now that we have a cohort of over 90 people that are currently serving on a school board, those members can get together, and we do get together regularly and communicate about how can we, with this small but growing group of school board members, really become leaders on our school board and show that there's a better way to do this. We want to multiply the success that we've had in the last several years. So the 3 R's that we talk about, reading, writing, and arithmetic, our vision, though, is that we want to reignite parents' interest in being active participants in their kids' education. And Kim talked about homeschooling, and Michael talked about getting involved. We have to light a spark with parents and grandparents that this is important. So we have empowered parent advocacy groups that are district-specific that are trying to empower parents to get more involved. We want to rebuild the trust between parents and teachers and create those solid parent-teacher partnerships. I look at this as a triangle. It's parents, it's teachers, and it's students. Everybody else needs to get out of the middle. So that means the teachers union influence and special interests, and everybody else needs to get out and try to keep that triangle of stakeholders as tight as possible. And I think that's how we return our K-12 system to a top-performing system in the nation. Minnesota knows how to do this. For a long time, we did have, fairly good public schools relative to the rest of the country, certainly. I know if you know people that live in coastal states, they would say you'd be crazy to send your kids to a private school in Minnesota because your public schools are so good. And if you grew up in Minnesota, or if your children, were raised here and went to public schools, there was a time when that was true. And I think, unfortunately, people's nostalgia about the public school that they accessed in Minnesota is clouding their vision of what the reality of our public school system is today. So our goal is to return back to that. I think the bones are good here, but I do think that this all rests on local leadership. So our focus, again, achievement, safety, post-secondary readiness, that's the main goal. Can kids graduate out of the K-12 system and be functional, productive adults? And we want to deliver on the statutorily defined mission of public schools. And this is really important, too. I put it up here, and I know people in the back would need binoculars to see it. But we're lucky in the state of Minnesota. Say what you will about other laws that we have on the books, but our state statutes have a mission statement for our public schools, and it is this. And I'm going to read it because the first line of our mission statement says it all. So we don't have to argue about what our public schools are for. I think there's a lot of conversations about now our public schools need to become a place where we can, transform agents of social change, and there's sort of this mission creep that has happened. This is what it's about. So the mission of public education in Minnesota, a system for lifelong learning, is to ensure individual academic achievement, that's number one, an informed citizenry, and a highly productive workforce. Raise your hand if you think that our K-12 system is doing any of those three things well right now. It goes on to say, and I think this is a beautiful part of it, that it is designed to do that by cooperating with the students' parents. So it's right there. That is what our public school system is designed to do. And ostensibly, when they are spending your tax dollars to advance the mission of public schools, that's what it's supposed to be. Those dollars are supposed to be driving at that mission. So we don't have to debate about, what are schools for? What should they be doing? Should we be engaging in this sort of mission creep of having health care being dispensed in the building? And no, we shouldn't, because this is our statutorily defined mission, and this is where we need to stay. And unless we can do those three things well, we ought not be dabbling in my opinion, other sorts of mission creep. So, and also our Minnesota state constitution says that it is the state's legal responsibility. The stability of the Republican form of government, depending mainly upon the intelligence of the people, is a duty of the legislature to establish a general and uniform system of public schools. The legislature shall make such provisions by taxation or otherwise, and will secure through an efficient system of public schools throughout the state. So this is the mission, and I think this is where we need to stay. Our values to deliver this are accountability. I think that student outcomes are heavily dependent on adult accountability. If you don't have people at the local level and at the state level that are going to be accountable for the student outcomes that they're responsible for, what are we really doing? You have to have that accountability piece. And with that comes transparency. People need to be able to see, where's this money being spent? All of these millions and billions of dollars on public education. How are we spending those dollars? What are the results that we're getting? Parents don't know how their kids are performing, typically. There's very little information that parents get about how their student is performing or what the holistic picture of the district is. Again, most people are shocked when you tell them what the proficiency levels are in their public district. They are horrified. Why didn't anyone tell me? How did I not know? Is this data available? Can I get this? I will tell you that if you go to Minnesota Department of Education website, you can go to a website called the report card. So if you just Google Minnesota Department of Education report card, you will get a data reporting tool, and it will show you a snapshot of how your district is doing, and you can filter it by a few different ways. It's not super user-friendly. And in my opinion, that's probably by design, because they don't really have great results to report at this point. You can go back through their data center and you can start, looking way back to whatever. You pick the date, 2013, and see the declining trends that have been happening in your district. But most people won't do that. They don't know how to do that. So a piece of our mission has been to expose this issue, because then once we can identify the problem, we can do something about it. Maintaining high standards is another big one. I know that everybody in this room is fairly well aware that there's an erosion on, there's a war on merit, candidly. Merit has no longer become a valued a valued virtue in our school system. And there are many districts now that have completely done away with like the honor roll. We just don't recognize students for achievement in the same way. They have changed the grading scale. There's this sort of philosophy called the equity grading. And so, kids can turn in their assignments whenever and they don't really fail them. And it's been skewed to, I think, just adapt to the lowest performers in the school. And they're not rewarding kids who are really trying. They are the high flyer kids that deserve that recognition for working hard. So hard work is not really being rewarded and high standards are not being maintained in policy or curriculum. Again, the partnership and equality. We need to treat every student equally. And I think that's a really difficult thing to argue against, but yet here we are. I think we have people that will say that we need to start treating students differently, and whether it's by, racial identity groups or other types of identity politics, we can't get into that because it goes down dark roads, in my opinion. So I think treating every student and making every student, giving every student the opportunity to reach their highest potential in our public school system, regardless of their race, color, or creed, ought to be the mission of our public schools. So we're uniting in that mission, and I will tell you that this is a unifying endeavor. We have, again, I think, really developed a coalition of people who can see that centrist leadership is the answer for our public schools. It is not, I think right now there's just an ideological swing to the left, if you'll say, like the progressive, regressive left, as I like to say, but I don't think that the response ought to be a really hard swing in the other direction. It needs to be focused and centrist, because that is our public schools. Our schools are diverse. They serve a lot of families with a lot of different needs. And so being able to kind of stay mission focused and find out where our common goals and shared priorities are really, I think, is at the crux of what we're trying to do. So here's our strategy. We empower parents, and so we're organizing local parent groups, and we're hosting events to try to give them the information and the tools that they need to be aware of what's going on. Well-informed parents are the key. And then the next step is to train candidates. We want to train candidates and also educate voters. We identified there was a huge problem in the voter education piece of most people had no idea who to vote for school board. People don't know who these candidates are. A lot of the candidates don't even have a website. They can't get their names out there. So we were able to overcome that by creating a statewide voter guide. And that was a really fantastic tool that we launched in our first year in 2022, and we did it again this last year to just show people who are headed out to the polls and have no idea, who these people are on the ballot, to say, if your priorities are shared with ours, and that is to try to put achievement-focused, like constituent-centered leadership on your local school board, these are the people that we would endorse. So that was a really effective tool. So we trained candidates. We helped voters identify who those people were. And then now we're happy to say that, again, we have over 90 people in a cohort of current serving school board members across the state, and we are trying to equip them with the information and the tools that they need to be effective leaders. I'm excited to say that this month, Minnesota Parents Alliance, in cooperation with several other state-based organizations that are similar to us across the country, we've all connected with one another, and we are establishing what is called the School Boards of Academic Excellence Network. It is something like an alternative to the National School Boards Association, which were, the kind people that called us domestic terrorists. We're creating our own entity and our own network because we know that you can work super hard to get these people elected at the local level, but once they get in those seats, if all they have is sort of, the MSBA, like I'm going to say generic guidance on, here's the model policy and here's kind of the status quo of how your district has always done stuff, you're not going to get a different result, right? We need to do something different to help empower and equip those local leaders as soon as they get in those seats to be effective. So I'm really excited to be part of this network that has emerged as a result of all the work that our state-based organizations have been doing over the last 18 months to 2 years. And it's exciting now to say that, here's our voter guide as well. So if you take nothing away from this, go look for this in 2024 and beyond. We will do this annually to let people know who their fantastic school board candidates are that ran. Here's some of our results, and again, it's sort of a longer list that people in the back won't be able to see, but over 70% of our school board candidates who attended our training events in 2022 won their races. That's a pretty solid success rate. So we know that the secret sauce is equipping and training these people on how to execute effective campaigns. That's so important. We endorsed candidates in our voter guide. We have a lot of followers on social media now. And the first time that we did our voter guide, no one really knew who we were, but we advertised on Facebook. We got 1.5 million impressions this year, and 60% of the districts that had somebody in the voter guide won their race as well. But this year, we kind of broke the internet. We didn't really realize that people were really going to be looking to this as a resource. And so actually on the day of the election this year, John Justice and some other people were kind of like talking about it on the radio, and we got a lot of PR that maybe was unexpected and website traffic. And so our website like crashed briefly. We had to sort of triage it quickly the morning of the election, but we had a 311% increase in website traffic. And this was an odd year election. There weren't even really that many elections this year. So people are now looking to this as sort of the gold standard guide of quality candidates that are running for local leadership positions. So all of this to say that the model works. Equipping parents and training them on how to run an effective campaign and win at the local level is working. And so now we've gone from, this is our 2021, chaos of the parent movement. That's what the parent movement looked like in 2021. And I think as a result of what we've been doing, this is what the parent movement looks like in 2023. It's achievement-focused, constituent-centered leadership getting elected at their local level. So these are, we've got somebody in Hopkins. Hastings flipped their school board to a constituent-centered majority this year, which was awesome for them, and they've had a really long slog of 2 years of all kinds of shenanigans going on at their local level. So it felt very good to see that happen for the people in Hastings this year. And then Anoka Hennepin was really a big story because they're our largest school district in the state. So, and they're certainly not, homogenous in the sense that, they're a solidly conservative district at all. That was a very hard-fought battle for those candidates, and they worked really, really hard. And the magic behind what they did was the parent group that got behind them. They had just a huge group of parent supporters. So anybody in this room, if you have people running at your local level, get behind them in any way you can. Contribute to their campaigns. Volunteer for whatever you can, whether it's door knocking, taking signs, making calls. They need your help because, again, these are not legislative level races. They don't get the support of the party. This is a nonpartisan office, so it doesn't work the same way that other campaigns do. And anything that you can do to help these people out, do it because they really, really need it. These are like average parents who are courageous enough to step forward and do this. They take all kinds of fiery arrows. As soon as you run for your local school board, you better have some thick skin because they are really up against a pretty hostile opponent. But when they get elected, they're committed to these principles. And we talked again about the high expectations, the transparency, and coming up with policy solutions that make sense, that are achievement driven. So we've also just sort of established some guiding principles on education generally. I think if we're going to restore our state to academic excellence, we need to not only empower local leaders, we need to start talking to our state leadership about what are you messaging on when it comes to K-12 education. And I think this is critical because I think that the missteps happen sometimes, in my opinion, in getting sucked into these controversial, divisive things, which is just, it's not a winning thing to get involved in. I think that everybody, with very few exceptions, can agree that all of these guiding principles, safety, transparency, creating a common culture that's uplifting for our students, making sure that they're ready after, they're graduated out of the K-12 system. Funding and flexibility is something we hear a lot. We're happy to spend money on education all the livelong day, but give the local districts the flexibility that they need to do what's right for the communities that they serve. High standards, parent-teacher empowerment, and innovation and access. We have to be able to innovate ideas and ways that we can get kids out of environments that aren't working for them. And whether that happens within the public system or getting the kids out of the public school system, I just know that I don't want to take part in any effort that keeps a kid trapped in a place that isn't serving them. So I think that we're working together. We've worked together with a lot of organizations that are aligned on K-12 issues and parental rights. These are just some of them. We're again trying to reach out now to legislators to make sure that we're all kind of in alignment on these guiding principles. We've gotten media coverage, which has been fantastic, and I think really helps to get our voter guide front and center when election time comes around. And we've become kind of a national model. It's been fun to hear, people calling us from California being like, "Can you come and do this here?" And I'm like, I just know Minnesota, and I know Minnesotans. I can't necessarily replicate this in other states, but it is validating to know that people across the country, because we did get national coverage on this, have reached out to us saying, what you're doing, this model is working. And so it's encouraging. And our work matters. And I think the last point on this is that local effective local leaders, what a great bench builder that is. Don't you think we need better people in the Minnesota State Legislature that get trained up at the local level that can run for seats in the future? So this is really important as well, and I think that that is sort of another value of this project is people are doing this real grassroots work at their local level and getting the name recognition and getting the experience that they need. And I hope that a lot of the people that are currently serving on their school board go on to state offices. I think that would be fantastic. So here's our goal. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. We want to replicate our success, expand our cohort. We want to have more people in seats this year and increase the value of our voter guide. Again, getting that word out that go to the voter guide as a resource. That's going to be super important in 2024. We're going to be up against literally millions of dollars that will try to defeat parents running for their local school board. So, the good thing is I think we're on the winning side of these issues. I think it is very expensive to sell bad ideas, which is what I think the teachers union sometimes has to do. But I think that we're on the right track with the voter guide. And if people know who to vote for at their local level, I don't think we can be beat. We're going to try to just continue to establish our authority on K-12 education because no one knows better than parents what students need and what the education system should look like. We're going to keep attracting allies, and we're going to keep trying to be a nationally recognized leader in this movement. I think that what we're doing has value, again, in other states that are seeing this work here. We need support. I'm going to put this out there. It's a plug. We are not a well-funded organization by any stretch, and we're up against incredible, huge dollars. And so this is a very like David and Goliath battle that we're fighting. This has become my passion project and very much a fourth child of our family. I feel like this is my baby that we've sort of incubated, and I've poured deep time into this, but I am one of hundreds of parents that have invested a lot of time at their local level trying to do this good work. So we definitely need your support. I think that what we've done on a shoestring budget in 18 months to 2 years, I think is a fraction of what we could accomplish with more. So tell your friends that Minnesota Parents Alliance, if they're feeling philanthropic, can use your support. Here's the call to action in the room. I know that there aren't a lot of parents, there are maybe more grandparents in the room. Start or grow a parent advocacy group or help your children do it. I think that I love that what Kim said about, maybe you're not the right person to start the parent group, but maybe your child is. So can you watch the grandkids while they go and do this work? I will say that I can't do the work that I do without a really supportive husband. He's right now homeschooling our kids while I'm speaking to you. So strong families that can work together to make sure that somebody in your family unit can be civically engaged and somebody can help the kids learn. And it really takes a family, which is why I think you've had other people speak to this group about there's an attack on families for that reason. Strong families are powerful and we need more of them. So help equip your children to be really involved in their kids' school, especially if they're still in public schools. Serve on committees, substitute teach. They are crying for substitute teachers. If you can substitute teach, that's fantastic. It's a great insight into what's really going on in our school buildings. Volunteer as much as you can. There are a lot of committees too at the district level that you can get involved in. So make sure that you ask your local school board that you're interested. Ask them what committees you can serve on. And then identify candidates. We need candidates so badly this year. It's a pretty thankless job in case you haven't noticed, and there are not a lot of people that are willing to step up and do this. It's a 4-year commitment. It's a nonpartisan office. It's hard work, and I think to do it right, you can ask Beth, who's in the room, to do it right and to serve well. It's a huge investment of your time, and it's a deep act of service. So if you can empower anybody in your communities, whether it's your golf buddies, your church friends, like anybody that you know that you think they have a heart for K-12 education and could serve in this role well, don't ask them once, ask them 20 times until you get to a yes, because you need to have these people run, and we will help them. We will do everything that we can to come alongside them, help train them up on how to run a great campaign, get them hooked up with other local leaders who are already in these seats that can talk to them about what the nature of this role is and what they can expect. And run for school board or help somebody who will. If somebody's running in your local community, again, get behind them in any way possible. Also, empower our teachers. We, again, have great teachers that are still in our K-12 system. They're working as hard as they can to stay in a really hostile environment right now that's not letting them do the job that they love. So if you know great teachers, empower them. And frankly, I think they're in an abusive relationship with their union, so speak to them as such. I think that they are very timid about speaking their mind on what really is going on in the building and what they're seeing and hearing. But try to put it in their ear that unless they use their voice and speak up, a lot of these issues are going to be completely unknown to people, and we can't fix problems that we don't know about. So come alongside any teacher friend that you have. They really, really need your support right now. And reach out to us. Here's our general inbox. It's info@minnesotaparents.org. I'm happy to meet anybody where they are to try to figure out, where you are on like an advocacy journey of trying to help get people engaged and organized in your local community. And this is a relational effort. This is like me coming into people's living rooms and talking to people on their back deck with a group of neighbors about, how do you incubate an effort at the local level. So I'm happy to go anywhere, anytime, and talk to anyone. And you ought to do the same. Just really open up your living room, open up your kitchen table to some friends who can really think thoughtfully about being strategic in your engagement and making sure that you're making the right argument, you're picking the right battle. Because that's how this work is going to get done. We're on Facebook and X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. We have a website with a lot of other great resources. And this is a quote from a friend. He runs Courage is a Habit. His name is Elvin Louis. I highly recommend that you visit his website. He has incredible information. It's courageisahabit.org. And this is his quote. His family, his ancestry escaped communist China. And there is no one who understands more what's going on in our K-12 system than people who have escaped formerly communist countries. His quote is, "Stand up for your children today or they'll live on their knees tomorrow." And I think that there is a lot of truth to that we all have to kind of put on our heart, that there's a very serious mission. This is the part where I crack my voice, because this is a very serious mission for people to undertake. And I think unless they actually have the reality of this on their heart, they won't be able to stand up to an incredible amount of pressure. And again, you have to have very thick skin to run at the local level, to be involved in this work. I know, like, I've gotten death threats. I think anybody who's been in this space, it's going to come. It's going to come because you're up against a really hostile opponent that wants the hearts and souls of your kids. So fight back as hard as you can. It's super important. And that's my mission. Thank you. Do you want me to take questions? I'm happy to take questions if you want to. Yeah. Questions? Anyone?
Hello, can you hear me now? Christine.
Yes.
Actually, a couple of questions. Back in the covered wagon days when I went to school, they had something called National Honor Society. Is that something that is still revered in the schools?
I don't know if revered is the right word anymore. I wish I could tell you it's different. They still have them. I think that they still exist. I just know that the pressure cooker of ideological activism is teaching kids that kids who achieve, kids who strive to be on the National Honor Society aren't valued and recognized amongst their peers in the same way anymore. And yes, they still have them, but I think that there is this undertone of, it's supremacist, it's privileged, it's, all the things that you might expect from sort of a political spin on achievement it's happening. But yes, there is a National Honor Society, and for that matter, like, there are students in the schools that, despite all of the insane things that are happening, are still achieving. They're working as hard as they can to achieve their dreams, their post-secondary dreams of going to university or whatever it may be for them. And I think it's such a testament to if you know students who are still working hard and making the grades and doing what they can. Find out who they are in your community and reach out to them and applaud them, because they are up against, I think, not the same environment that you remember when you were being recognized as a valedictorian or an honor society member. It's not the same anymore.
And I had one other thing. I know that you just returned from testifying in Washington.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your experience on that?
Yeah. People ask me how Washington, D.C. was, and I just say it's D.C.-ish. It was fantastic, though, and I think that, wow, what a fantastic journey to say that there are parents like me around. I'm not that unique. There are others around the country, and so there were about 15 of us that came together. We actually were organized through Parents Defending Education, which is a phenomenal national organization that's been doing a lot to help parents at the local level. They brought us together, and we were able to speak with senators on a panel of just some of the concerns that are going on in K-12 education. And I'll say, and I'm sorry to report, that one of the senators that we spoke with was very candid on the record and said, ma'am, we don't help your communities here. We hurt them. Like, there's nothing that's going on at the federal government that's going to help your communities the way that you are. Local parents are the best way to help K-12. The federal government and everything that they're doing at the federal level is not effective, clearly, and may be harmful in many ways. And this individual is a Republican senator from Alabama, and he was very candid in that. And he just said, nobody knows more than you do about education, and engaging at the local level is immensely more powerful than talking to your federal legislators. And it's still important, and I would encourage everyone in this room to develop a relationship with your state and federal legislators anyway, and let them know what's important, because what also was a takeaway, they don't know, guys. Like, they don't know. They are spread a mile wide and an inch deep over a whole bunch of different topics. And also, sadly, one of my takeaways is, like, I kind of think our country's run by like 20-something-year-old staffers that have like very little to no idea of like what the practical implications of the policies that they're passing actually have on people. So they rely on you to be their eyes and ears. Tell them what's going on at the local level. They need to hear it. Thanks.
My granddaughters had the privilege of initiating their education in China. Their father accepted a position over there for 2 years. One was 3 and one was 7, and China requires children 3 and above to start their education. They returned to Minnesota 2 years later, and my daughter tried to get them into several different schools. They were at first in a parochial and then in a charter and so forth and so on. Each time there was such a huge lack of motivation for the students and a huge lack of accountability. So in 1 year, she switched them from 3 different schools before she found the kind of educational system she wanted for her children. One is now in college, one is in high school, but she had to fight for their education. I get emotional.
I know, and then you'll cry and I'll cry, and like that's how it works with parents, right? So don't start.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Yes, you're welcome. And to that point, I have 3 children. They're all different. They all would need something different, and I homeschool them so I can really customize that for them. But I am saying that, you know, this is not a one-size-fits-all solution, and I think that really is the argument for school choice and education freedom. If you have a child who doesn't thrive well in like a big district, but might be better off in like a smaller environment, whether that means a smaller public school environment, and you're going to use open enrollment to get them there, I just know that there are so many options outside the public space that would better serve students, and I think it's really important to continually advocate and bring up the topic of we should be driving at education freedom, in my opinion. I always say this is a both and approach, and I think the reason why we're working so hard at the public school, you know, in the public schools, our public schools need to be competitive and strong, because I do think that education freedom to some degree is happening. It's happening in other states. I think it's just a matter of time. Minnesota will probably be one of the last adopters for obvious reasons, but I do think that it will come in some way. And I think when it does, our public school systems need to be competitive. We have to have great local leaders that are going to make that a competitive option so that it's not that attractive for parents to leave. They want to stay there. I think the competition will really help keep our public schools above bar. And I think that you know, even if you live in the best district, the highest performing district, the district with all the bells and whistles, and your students just like, it's not a good fit for them, every student's different, get them out of there. Put them where they can reach their highest potential. And I think, again, that's the mission of public schools. Are you taking, you know, the raw material of a child and saying, we're going to give you everything you need to reach your highest potential? Go ahead.
Try this. Cristine, thank you very much. Did you introduce yourself as just a mom?
Just a parent.
Just a parent. Hey, you're far more than that, for goodness sakes. Yeah, don't
anyone
walk
can do
away
this.
from that at all. Okay. If we have a prospect who might be interested in becoming a candidate for school board, but they're ambivalent about it at the moment, the training sessions that you hold, would that be a good venue for them to sit down and just listen to that?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. So here's a couple of things. I'm such a bad like advertiser, because again, this isn't like my professional skill set. I forget to say, we're having a training in March this year. Our campaign school that we've done the last 2 years, we've been doing them in May. And that's great, but we're realizing that almost the number one thing that candidates who don't win their race say is, what if I had more time? If I had more time, if I would have started earlier and had more opportunity to get my message out, I could have been more impactful. And it's a real heartbreaker when they lose by so few votes, and it's like, oh yes, if you only had a few more, weekends to door knock or whatever it is. So get them out early. We have a campaign school now in March this year. We're hoping that we can fill a room with people who are ready to commit early and get out there and utilize all the summer months. There are all kinds of festivals and parades and all these things you can participate in, but you miss the mark if you wait till the filing period in August. So yes, I would encourage anybody who's even thinking about it, even if they're on the fence and they're not sure, number one, they should reach out to us at info@minnesotaparents.org, and I can sort of shepherd them through. We have some online resources that we can send to them right away. I have a few informational videos with current serving school board members and others talking about what the reality of campaigning is, what is it like, how much time does it take, what are some important things to know, and then once you're serving, what is that like, what's the time commitment? So that may help people get more comfortable with, as they discern whether this is the right thing for them to do this year. So yes, just have them reach out and we will give them everything they need to know.
Cristine, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I grew up in an education family. My grandmother was a school teacher in the one-room schoolhouse. My mother was a public school teacher in the one-room schoolhouse, who I was schooled by. And my wife was a school teacher. So I cherish education and want that for my grandkids and great-grandkids and so on. And guys, we heard something special here today. I mean, Cristine has stepped up to the plate in a big way. And all of us, I challenge each one of you. I'm going to go home and give $100 to her organization.
Thank you.
And I challenge each one of you to outdo me today. We need to get behind her and people like her. And we aren't all organizers and able-bodied like her and able-minded like her, possibly. But we all can do something. And I intend to do more than give my money to her. I'm going to give my help to her. And I challenge each of you to do the same.
Thank you. I so appreciate that. Yes, this is a true grassroots effort. So I really appreciate everybody who steps up and wants to give time or money to this.
Thank you so much, Cristine Trooien. In case you missed getting a copy of our January meetings, we have dates coming up. I have those copies up here. Those were also in your email. We're looking to get 5 more volunteers for our back of the room operation. You may have noticed it's a little thin today. A couple of our key volunteers decided to actually take a vacation. I don't know about this. So if you're willing to volunteer on meeting day, please contact me or send an email through our website. Our next meeting will be March 12th. Our featured speaker is Kendall Qualls, Executive Director of Take Charge. He'll be speaking about his new book, The Prodigal Project, Hope for American Families. He will be bringing copies. He'll be selling them and autographing them, $20. So if you need to bring extra cash that day and want a copy of his book, please be aware of that. Our first speakers will be several candidates. Some of the congressional candidates who briefly introduced their names to us will be given an opportunity to speak to you. We'll also hear about plans for a large American Veterans Memorial Park in Cannon Falls. Retired Navy Lieutenant Fong T. Lor will be speaking about his mission to create the park. If you want to be a delegate from Republican seniors, either to your congressional district or to the state convention, please see Mike Lehman. He is running our recruiting process. We will be voting in April for that. Or again, indicate your interest via a message through our website. We'll continue collecting dues in March. In order to vote in April, you need to be a dues paid member. Our dues are $20 for an individual, $30 for a couple. Remember to tell a friend or neighbor about Republican seniors. Remember your homework assignment. Take materials to your precinct caucus. More information about today's announcements is up here. We have now a couple minutes for 30-second announcements. Now, this gentleman here wanted to make a brief announcement.
Thank you. I wanted to say a couple things because I'm concerned.
I'm concerned about the state of Republican politics and the fact that most of us are concentrating on the top of the ticket. We need to concentrate on the down the ballot candidates. My BPOU does not yet have a candidate in either legislative district. We got Democratic legislators in a Republican district. That's disgusting. One of the legislators in the A side of my BPOU is the lead sponsor of the Right to Die bill. That's horrible. We need candidates. We need to worry about down the ballot. We really need to worry about that and try to regain the House. Do you know how close we lost the House? We need to get our House back to get rid of all this crap that's going on at the legislature. I'm more concerned that everybody thinks that the only election is the top of the ticket. In my personal opinion, I think we're hitching our wagon to the wrong horse. I think the conservative Democrats, the independents, really don't like Joe Biden. But you know what? They really, really hate Donald Trump. And they're going to vote for Joe Biden just because they don't like who we may potentially nominate. That's where we need to concentrate on down the ballot. Let's get our legislative candidates. Let's get them elected. Let's regain the House.
Thank you. The person from SD 55 is here. Is this you? Yes. Microphone to him, please.
I'm just here to mention the fact that we do have caucuses coming up, and I do have information for the Burnsville Savage people for SD 55, and I will leave this information on the back counter there for anybody that will attend. Please, we need your back up to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Is it on?
Yeah, good.
Okay, I just want to mention Metro Republican Women. The second Saturday in March has Jenny Choi speaking, and she grew up under communism and escaped it. So it's going to be a fabulous presentation.
Thank you very much. Anyone else with a 30-second announcement? Dale?
I rise since the opposition or the subject was brought up in defamation to Donald Trump. I actually support him. So you did your part. I'm doing my part.
Thank you very much. Our door prize drawing. We have gift cards, and we also, oh, Sarah, you had an announcement I wanted you to make. Thank you. Sarah, you need to press the bottom of the microphone, please, to turn it on.
About that.
Great, thank you.
We need to keep an eye on the legislature this year. And if you haven't, take a look at the legislature's website. There's all kinds of information there, and it can tell you how to watch floor sessions and committee meetings. It's kind of impressive.
Thank you, Sarah. Now the door prize. We have option of coffee gift cards or these snazzy t-shirts. One's a size medium and one is a size extra large. And I'm going to have Christine draw our door prize.
All right. Not rigged like the Super Bowl.
Okay, last four digits of your white ticket. 2558. Do we have a winner? That would be you. Okay, wonderful. And Christine, would you draw the second one, please? Yeah, just a second. All right, ending 2600. All right, come on up, and we'll give you your choice of door prizes. Thank you all for your attention. Hang out here, talk with each other. We had fabulous speakers. You can view the video recording of this in about 2 days. Thank you again for your attendance. We'll see you March 12th.
We're gonna do Valentine things.
What is a Valentine?
It's a card that you make for someone with hearts on it. A box of chocolate, like a heart box. Lots of flowers, suckers, heart candies. They say you're sweet, I love you, you're cool. Giving like money is nice.
What is romance?
When you love someone, going out on walks and holding hands. Like kissing. Kiss them on the lips. Really gross. Not anything inappropriate. Hugging will do.
What's gross about boys?
They're stinky. They're really messy. They don't like to take baths. They're rude. They tackle you. They don't act mature. I just don't get it. I don't know what they want.
What's weird about girls?
They're always in groups gossiping. They're always picky. They want something done exactly when they tell them to.
What would you say if someone asked you out on a date?
Say, no thank you. I would say, maybe come back in 10 years. I might go, as long as it was okay with Mommy and Daddy.
Who should pay for the date?
The boy. The boy. The boy. Boy. The boy. Because boys are supposed to act like gentlemen, because girls shouldn't have to do that, because they want the ladies to like them.
What is love?
Be nice to all the people in the world. Almost like overwhelming. Happy crying, overwhelming. Being honest, not keeping secrets, just doing the right thing. To have a family, that's the way that God made us.
How do we show love to others?
You just say, are you okay? Telling them it's okay and hugging them. And just take your time to spend with them. Because God wants us to love each other.
How does love change people?
If you show them love, it usually makes them forget about their pain. It makes all the world brighter. It would make them feel more confident, and they won't be sad, scared, or angry because they know they're being loved. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day.
Republican Seniors of Minnesota. For more information, please visit republicanseniorsmn.com. While visiting our website, you can click on the video tab to watch videos of past meetings. Also, look for other tabs that bring you to our live player and other special video programs. Or on YouTube, search for Republican Seniors of Minnesota.